We are live, Critical Condition Sports. Jose Matos. If you've listened to the podcast before, you already know who he is. But if you haven't heard him before, you will be blown away. One of the best podcasters in the industry, a good friend of mine. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing great, man. Thank you for the introduction, man. I love chatting it up with you, man. It's always a good time.
It is a really good time. It's we think very similarly, but even if we didn't, it's okay. I mean, you can still be a great podcaster and not think the way that I think. But I love the way that you view the game, NFL, the way you view MMA. We've had some good basketball talks. You're very well rounded. You're doing fantastic work with the PFL, and then a bunch of other organizations I've seen you do interviews with and cover. Do podcasts. My friend Chris Mixon just won in the PFL. He
Shout
is
out to
now
him.
4-0. It was a very, very tough fight, the toughest fight that he's had, but he came out victorious. So there's nothing like the fight game. And so when I hear someone such as yourself break it down the way you do, immediately I always have to have you on.
Oh, thank you, and I appreciate it, man. Yeah, shout out to your boy Chris Mixon, man. Had me nervous for a sec. Had me a little nervous there, but he got the job done, man. That's the fight game sometimes.
Yeah, and it's the more experience you have, the more you're tested, you get better, you evolve, you become more comfortable, and you just become sharper and cleaner. And so fights like that are fights that, of course, you don't look forward to having, but the fights that you almost need to have because then you know how you answer and how you respond to difficult
Yeah.
times. And it was definitely a really big fight for him, something that he can learn from. And immediately I texted him after, and yeah, he knows that that was a fight that he needed. So, all that being said, there's a lot going on in the MMA world. And for those who are just now getting into the UFC, I was explaining the fight game to someone who's really interested in wanting to be interested. So I said, there's nothing like a big fight. Like you could watch the NBA, pretty cool. Probably the last 5, 6 minutes matter the most.
Yeah.
NFL, obviously the most watched. But when you have a big fight, especially if you're there live, like such as yourself, you've been there live a lot. There's nothing like a big fight. Like there's something in the air. You can almost feel like the tension. There's just nothing bigger than that. What have you made of the recent fights that have happened? I mean, we just had Dominic Cruz lose, but he was looking good. We've had a bunch of fights recently. So what have been any standouts for you? Anyone in particular that you're like, you know what, that fight we're gonna remember type of thing?
Cheeto is on a. Well, you want a fight or a fighter?
We can do both.
Okay, so I can't think of a fight right now off the top of my head, but Cheeto Vera, man, is on a hot streak right now. Because I do admit I do the occasional gambling and I look at the odds or whatnot. And I thought to myself, man, it is so hard to bet against Dominic Cruz. Yet never lost in a non-title fight. Then Cheeto, I mean, he's just on a hot streak, man. And sometimes, odds or statistics, you got to throw that out the window now and you got to go with who's hot. Cheeto Vera is hot. He started off slow, routine like he routinely does, and he was able to get a highlight worthy finish. I think we can all say that, man. That one hurt, man. I mean, I'm a huge Dominic Cruz fan, but right now, man, Cheeto Vera's on a hot streak. A lot of people doubted him. People didn't really know who he was before the Sean O'Malley fight. And then I think that's when he really started popping up on people's radars. He had that heartbreaking loss to Jose Aldo, and now he's back, man, to form, and he's beating legit people. I have a feeling within the next year we'll be seeing Cheeto Vera challenge for a world championship.
Now, for Dominic Cruz, do you make it where, he's a little bit more old school and it's the evolution of fighting? Or is it, you know what, Dominic Cruz is still Dominic Cruz. He just got caught. Like it just happens.
I think two things, and I will tell you this. I do want to go get into this. I'm glad you're asking that because here's the thing, like a lot of media likes to blow things over proportion, and I think that's where you and I get along, Max, because of the fact that we don't do that. I think
Yeah.
we are good at what we're doing, and we're not just going with running with a headline because all I kept seeing was Dominic Cruz washed, Dominic Cruz washed.
Mm-hmm.
How do you consider that being watched? This guy had never lost a non-title fight. 24-3 heading into this fight. Got caught. Won the first 2 rounds. Remind everybody, he did win the first 2 rounds. And he
Mm-hmm.
just got caught, man. It happens. That's the game. Now, do I think that he's still a championship, challenging fighter right now to get himself back in those ranks? It's hard. I kind of lean towards no, but anything can happen. I didn't think Glover Teixeira would win a world championship, and he did at 45?
Yeah.
And he's still at his age. Went up against a hungry lion and gave us one of the best best fights we've seen. So I don't think the book is closed on Dominic Cruz, but it's going to be very hard and it's going to take longer. And I just don't know the durability. Dom has had issues with injury, but I don't think he's washed. And I think people need to stop saying he's washed. It's hard for people to tell me that Dominic Cruz is washed. With no disrespect here, no disrespect. That same day, I saw Rory McDonald get beat by an alternate taking the fight on 2 days' notice. Now, Rory did retire. Shout out to him. Great career. Let's get your fight into the Hall of Fame against Robbie Lawler. But it's very hard when people are saying or using the term washed with Dominic Cruz, man. I don't know if you agree with me there.
No, I 100% agree with you. I think we as media members, as fans, people who love sports, it's very easy to be a prisoner of the moment. It's very easy to, okay, yeah, he's done, or wow, this guy's the best in the world. And like you said, it's just to be able to take a step back and realize the context behind it. Now, if he would have went out there and looked awful, and then I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, he won the first 2 rounds. It's not like this guy just got whooped. It's like, yeah, you get caught. That's what makes this sport so hard. And that's why it's so hard to be great. Or the people that don't lose, you're like, it's just different because in this sport, literally anything can happen at any given second. That's what makes it so exciting. And so for you to get caught, I'm not the type of guy to just be like, yeah, he's done. That's just not me as well. We also have recent news. I saw something about John Jones, and it looks like I've heard rumors and I've heard a couple people talk about it looks like he's coming back to fight Stipe. And you and I believe, have talked about this before, but now that it seems like things are really rocking and rolling now, it seems more plausible and feasible than ever. What are you expecting from John? He posted a workout video the other day. He looked sharp. Granted, he was hitting mitts. I mean, it's different when they're not punching back at you. But with that size, one thing that I really like about this layoff is it gives him time to adjust and be comfortable with the weight that he's now carrying. It's not like he just gained a bunch of weight very quickly and then jumped into a fight. He's been this weight for some time now. Like I remember him putting it on, and now he's had it for, I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a good amount of time. So he's used to training with that weight. He's used to living with that weight. And so when you make an adjustment where you're obviously making a huge weight increase, I like for you to be comfortable with what you're doing. This is a good sign for me. I believe John Jones is going to remind everyone who he is and why he's considered, in my eyes, the greatest of all time. Do you feel the same way about him? Or do you believe that, speaking of Dominic Cruz, he doesn't believe in ring rust, by the way, but do you believe in ring rust? Do you believe John has been getting hit a lot in his last couple fights? You can't afford to get hit like that in heavyweight. Is he going to get a rude awakening? Or do you believe John Jones is going to be the guy that we remember him being?
This has been a very, what is it? I mean, we've kind of drawn this out, right? Because we've been expecting his debut. We didn't get to see him last year. Now this year, I'm hearing things about November and December being the possible targets for him. It's very hard, because on one end, I think that he's benefiting from this. He's just, like you're saying, he's putting on the weight. He's getting acclimated to everything. I mean, he's hitting mitts right now. Some people are overblowing the mitt thing in the sense where they're saying that he's looking slow. He's just hitting mitts, man. But he's just hitting mitts. I'm very interested because Dominic Cruz does not believe in ring rust. And for him to go out there fighting at heavyweight, right? New weight, man. He's Johnny Big Bones now, Jones. He's fighting to fight a guy like Stipe Miocic, who we don't know still, right? Does he still have it? What kind of version of Stipe are we going to get, man? It's a very interesting fight. Could be a very dangerous one for John Jones, but I do believe that John Jones finds a way to get it done. I'm a believer just like you, man. I think the only thing that stops John from being the truly greatest of all time is pretty much just all the off cage issues, man, to be honest with you.
No, and I definitely can't dispute that. His outside of the octagon, it's crazy. He has an unbelievable legacy, but it could have been so much better. Like if you didn't have all the outside noise and the distractions and the fight cancellations and getting caught with this and then doing that. It is disappointing, especially being UFC champion ever. So we got to see him for such a long period of time, but at the same time, didn't really get to see him for such a period of long time. Either way, a lot of people that have kind of entered into the fight season or fight game now don't really know prime John Jones, if you think about it, right? You're looking at Israel Adesanya. Some people remember Habib, of course. Everyone knows Conor McGregor. A lot of people don't remember John. and what he did at his peak. Even his last couple fights, it didn't really feel like John. Like it's a
Yeah.
lot closer. He used to dominate. Like whatever you're good at, normally you take him to the different route. He would fight you in your own game. Like he would wrestle and clinch with Chael Sonnen. Like he would
Yeah.
outstrike Shogun. Like he was just different. Do you think he's out of his prime per se? Like even if he comes
Yeah.
back and you're impressed with how he's adjusted with the weight, do we see that version of John Jones again?
It's very hard to tell, man, because and like people do want to criticize John Jones saying, oh, look at those last few fights.
Yeah,
I mean, last time, like to me, George St. Pierre is one of the greatest to ever do it, and his last few fights didn't look weren't the most dominating fights. Like some people thought he lost to Johnny Hendricks. Same thing with John. People thought he lost to Dominic Reyes. So I don't think he should be criticized for that. Are his best days behind him? Like, are those prime John Jones days behind him? Man, I think so. I think so, Max. Just because, I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, I don't know his mentality. I can't speak for his mentality and what's going on through his head. I think there's a lot more distractions now in his life. It's very hard to, judge someone based off something you don't know. And last time I heard from John Jones's camp, he likes to be around a lot of yes people. Yes people are kind of the worst people to have, man. So as far as ability, man, sure, I believe he still got it. But as far as like outside distractions, man, I think that's the thing that's really derailed him so far, man. And
agree.
I'm crossing my fingers it doesn't this time around.
Agree. 100% agree. Before we get into the man, the myth, the legend himself, we're going to talk about Islam, Charles Oliveira. This seems like yeah, the just two guys that are on the top of their game, the peak, the scariest people you don't want to fight, finally meeting each other. It almost makes me feel like Tony Ferguson versus Habib that we never got. Like when Tony Ferguson was on that tear that no one wanted to face. Obviously, we know what Habib did. We never
Yeah.
got that. And granted, Habib probably wins that fight, but there was just interesting things that Tony presented. They're like, he doesn't mind being taken down though. He's really, really good on the ground. This feels very similar to me, where you have two guys that everyone's scared to fight, finally fighting each other. And it seems like Oliveira, I didn't look at the odds recently. I don't know if you have.
Yep. Plus 230 on Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, he's an underdog once again. And that just blows my mind considering who he's beaten, how he's beaten these people. He's shown that he is beatable at times, of course, being rocked or being dropped. But I do think people are looking past Oliveira once again. What is your evaluation of this fight? Who are you taking?
About maybe 6 months ago, I said I stood on my platform and I said Islam Makhachev is your next lightweight champ. 6 months later now, I'm gonna retract that here actually
Mm,
because I am a believer in Charles Do Bronx now. After seeing how he handled himself with Justin Gaethje, call this bias you're not, man. I'm a sucker for someone that has to overcome a lot. I'm a sucker for someone on what you can overcome because I think it does matter. Like what you say with your boy Chris Mixon, he had to overcome something different, and it's good that he's doing it right now in his career than later on. I think
yep.
Charles's life just been full of fighting, man. I'm not saying that Islam hasn't, but after seeing the way he handled the Gaethje thing, where you think about it, Max, he was in prime position to lose. If he would have gotten finished in the first round, you would have understood the mental aspect of that. He's fighting in enemy territory. They took away his belt. Kind of the weird situation in that happened. I mean, the family, he alludes to now how his dad called him crying, his mom called him crying, his daughter called him crying. That's a lot of stuff to deal with in a hostile environment. And then it's not like he goes in there and just smashes Gaethje. He's in trouble. And he comes back and he gets the job done, man. You can't really put a price tag on that. And I think he's got very valuable experience. I think he's hit the lowest that he can hit. When people were calling him a quitter back then when, he was, believe, 10-8, 10-8, and now he's 21-8. Man, Islam is a different animal, but I cannot bet against Du Bronx anymore, man. I can't respect the man.
How do you think stylistically it ends up happening though? Because obviously Islam's very imposing. He's that pace, that pressure. He'll take you down. Charles isn't really anyone that wants. You don't want to take this guy down though. Like, so how do you think these styles mesh?
I think they're gonna start. I think they're gonna keep it standing for a minute, man.
Yeah.
And I think that because here's the thing, like Charles Do Bronx's stand-up game is very underrated, man. We've seen what he did to Michael Chandler. We saw what he did to Justin Gaethje. He's one of the best on the feet, man. And I think the most interesting thing is I think what's going to happen is I think Charles is going to land. I think Islam is going to want no part of that. And he's going to try to shoot for the takedown. Real Khabib like, right? And the thing is, once that fight hits the ground is where it gets interesting because Islam Makhachev, the one real big distinctive advantage that I give him is he's just strong. I mean, you could see the power. When he took out Dan Hooker, man, easy. Bobby Green, granted, Bobby Green was a short notice opponent. Sure, so was him to Islam. He went out there and he's got that unique power, which I think is a big concern for Charles, man. He can't go down to the ground, let himself get taken down to the ground and underestimate Islam's strength because he can't submit people. He does have that imposing power to be able to ground and pound you. So it's gonna make for a very interesting fight. Plus, I mean, you're training with Khabib. I mean, I don't think there's that much better that you can do when it comes to, having Khabib Nurmagomedov in your training camp there. Plus, again, environment. Give that edge to Islam too, man. They'll be in Abu Dhabi. Very interesting fight, man.
You mentioned Habib. Habib's 200 pounds now too, so you're getting 200-pound Habib. If Charles wins, I do think the conversation comes about, him or because I mean Habib, if you really think about it, granted 30, ridiculous, made everything look easy. He didn't have that many title defenses. Not to take anything away from him, but it's not like he had a GSP run. He didn't have an Anderson Silva run, a John Jones run. When you think of the all-time greats, which he gets considered in that class because of his pure dominance, he didn't have as many title defenses as one would think. And Charles Oliveira, if he ends up beating Islam, he's starting to make a little bit of a run of himself. Clearly, when people compare the two, I do believe Habib still is definitely better than Charles Oliveira. Yeah. And I maybe definitely sound a little disrespectful, but I don't think there's a comparison between the two. Do you?
Very hard, man. I would say we got to do another show after the fight, man, just to see what really happens there because I try not to get caught up in the moment, but I really am enjoying what Charles is doing out there, man. And I do think on betting odds, right, Khabib would definitely be the favorite. I mean, right? When has Charles been the favorite? And I do think I give the edge to Khabib. But, man, I'm telling you, this Charles guy, I don't know what it is about him, but he just has that power to prove people wrong. He's got that heart of a warrior. And I'm very interested here, Max, because we talk about Islam Makhachev. Has he really been tested? Has he? Because it's a big leap when you're going with Charles. Charles is the best 155 pounder on the planet right now because Habib is retired. Even then, he'd be top two. But Islam hasn't been tested, and I know I've heard from people that he doesn't like to be in the spotlight there. He doesn't like being in the main event. He does get nervous, but more nervous than usual because every fighter does have some nerves, but he doesn't like those nerves, kind of like a Derek Lewis who, for some reason, can't fight in the state of Texas. He doesn't like that kind of nerve. So if you're feeling that way, it's a pretty big leap to fight Charles Oliveira. I think Islam would have benefited from a Beneil Dariush fight. I do understand why, instead of that, he opted to take the title shot, though.
Right. Absolutely. I'm leaning towards Charles as well, by the way. Conor McGregor, I have to ask you.
I love the guy. Twitter game's on point.
I'm about to say, I love Conor. I've been big on TikTok, right? So I've been making these videos. I made a TikTok about how Conor finally has something to prove, right? Like we've the Marvin Hagler saying it's hard to wake up in silk sheets 4 a.m. But when everyone is saying that you can't do it, everyone is saying that you're done, you're past your prime. Now I'm like, okay, you know what? Now you guys are actually giving this guy some motivation. Before I got it. He made more money than he knows what to do with. He's sailing off in the sunset, literally on his Lamborghini yacht. He has nothing to prove. But now I'm like, okay, he actually does have something to prove. Now no one thinks he can do it. And a guy like Conor, no matter how much money you have, I do believe he is a fighter at heart. He truly loves the art of it. And he has that competitive nature to him. But then he signs a movie deal. So I'm like, okay, now I kind of go back to what I said, because when you are Conor McGregor, anytime you step in the octagon, you're getting the best version of that person in front of you. Everyone wants to beat you. They make the most money, the most eyes. They can make a name off of you. You need to be 100% dedicated. Making a movie, granted, I've never been a movie star, but I know from hearing about it, it requires so much time and attention, and that's just another distraction away from what we've been trying to say. He needs to just stay focused. So then kind of went back. And then, Jose, I flopped again because I've seen these recent
videos. Do this to me.
I've seen these recent videos, right? And granted, he's definitely not cutting down to 155. So it's clearly 170 is like
No,
he's got
dude,
big.
he's a big boy. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
he's
big
big.
boy now.
But it just seems like he's, again, Instagram, this is the power of social media. You show what you want to show. But it does seem like his movements. He's like he took like he was in Taekwondo, and you could see his movements and throwing the kicks. But yet he's weight training. But yet he's doing boxing, and then he's showing jujitsu. I'm like, and he said this witnessed the best comebacks. I'm like, okay, now he is serious about the comeback. So I thought maybe because he sent out a tweet. I know this is a long rant. He sent out this tweet saying,
No.
kind of it's been real type of thing with MMA. So I'm like, oh wow, he actually retired. He signed a movie deal. Cool.
He's done that many a time.
Yeah, and I'm like, don't take it seriously. But the movie deal made me kind of take it seriously. But then he ends up saying that witnessed the best comeback ever. So all that to say, what do you make of all of this? When you see Connor, clearly he looks like a tank. Clearly it looks like he's going to stay at 170. There's a lot of interesting matchups. I don't think you always have to just go for the Usman or the Poirier. You can go for a Michael Chandler. Go for an exciting fight first. What do you make of Connor? Does he come back? Are we seeing him hungry? Is he done? Can you answer any of these questions?
Well, before I do answer that, I'm gonna turn this around. I do, because here's the thing. So you are probably one of the best minds I've ever spoken to when it comes to basketball. Okay, I want to give you a roses, shout you out there, man. You have such a great mind for the sport of basketball. So let me ask you this though,
Okay.
kind of just and give me a short answer here, and
Yeah.
and then I'll answer your Conor McGregor question. Do you think winning a championship is all LeBron wants to do right now at this stage of his career?
No.
Okay, so I don't really make much of Conor McGregor, whether he's tweeting out that he peace MMA. Yeah, he's done that like 3 or 4 times. I can probably count him this year. Um, I don't buy into the whole he cares about what people are thinking sometimes, because a lot of people don't believe in him, and honestly, they shouldn't. They shouldn't with what we've seen. I don't think he beats a top 5, 6, 7 fighter, whether it's welterweight or lightweight. To be honest with you, we had the rankings. We can go over them, but I don't think he does that. You know what I mean? So I don't think. And Connor wants those big time fights. I don't think that fighting though is his one true passion anymore. I don't think he really cares what people are saying. When you got 40 million in the bank, Max, and you're just signing movie deals, and you really do not have to get punched through the face or cut weight to make a living the way you're doing, man. I think Connor was in love with the money, partially with the sport, but I think he was fighting to be able to make the money. And granted, he's done that. He deserves all the money he's ever made, man. He changed the landscape of what fighters are getting paid in MMA. Granted, people talk about, the fighter pay thing, but I'm starting to see some fighters, some champions making the millions, man, which we had never really seen with LeBron James. What does LeBron James have to prove to anybody?
Right.
He's
Right.
rich. He's building his net worth already. He's LA. He is prime time, showtime, whatever you want to call him. He's won championships with different organizations. People said that he couldn't do it in the West. He did it. I don't care about the bubble thing. Same thing with Connor, man. He's, at the end of the day, he's a 2-time division champion. He's made his money. He's made this global brand. I'm more surprised, Max, that Connor isn't a promoter for MMA or has started his own MMA organization, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. No, those are all, I can't even argue or deny that. Once you reach that mogul stage, there's
Yeah.
really, you don't have anything really left to prove. And I think he was like the Forbes, like richest athlete after selling his proper 12. And yeah, he has
In
hundreds of,
MMA over soccer players,
yeah.
over football players, which MMA, football and soccer and basketball are light years ahead of the UFC when it comes to,
Oh,
the money and whatever they're going to pay people.
100%, 100% agree with that. Um, yeah, no, it's interesting. I
You
guess
want
it's,
to believe, Max? I
yeah,
think you want to
dude.
believe.
Dude, the part of me that just wants to. When I see him training and I see him hitting the mitts, I'm like, God, I just want to see him just have one really good fight. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you something. I've talked to some people in the media, and even then, like Conor McGregor isn't what he used to be. And whether we're talking about the fighter, the persona, or everything, like some media people that I was talking to, they dread Conor McGregor fight weeks now.
Wow.
Yeah, they dread it because it used to be something so unique and something special, right? Like the enigma of everything, the mystique, the Mystic Mac. I mean, he was feeling where you thought he could beat any fighter in the world that we'd never seen, kind of like this Hamzat thing where we've never seen him get beat. And now it's kind of a chore to a lot of these journalists too, man. So I think, I mean, I would love to see Conor McGregor. There's nothing more than I love than to have my friends over, fight night, Conor McGregor, sipping on some, some whiskey, maybe not some proper 12. It's not my cup of tea, but enjoy a good fight night. But I think those days are behind us, Max.
All right, man. We'll see. We'll definitely see. I know you got to get going here shortly. So Jose Matos, one of the best in the business. You're welcome to come on anytime you want. Please, if you got anything coming up, any events, any podcasts, where can they follow you? The floor is yours.
Thank you. You guys, check out PFL. It's going to be airing 11 in the morning here Central Standard Time this Saturday, ESPN Plus. August 20th, man, lots of events, man. We got the Usman and Edwards fight coming on, man. So everyone watch out. You like combat sports, Saturday is going to be the main day where you get to watch bare knuckle, PFL, UFC. As far as for me, I got AJ Fletcher, who's going to be fighting on that Saturday card. He'll be on the show tomorrow. I'm not sure when you're releasing this, but by the time you hear this, that interview should be coming out with AJ Fletcher. That'll be coming out on Tuesday. So watch out for him. I think AJ's a phenomenal fighter, and we get to sit down and chat it up. So be on the lookout for that. You can catch me on Instagram at Critical Condition Sports and on Twitter at Condition Talk.
That's awesome, man. And by the way, Usman wins this fight Saturday, and then second,
100%.
Chris Mixon also. But I forgot to tell you this, trained with Connor back in the day, and he said,
Oh.
"Yeah, Connor is that guy." He said, "There's people say a lot about Connor, but he's very broad shouldered, he's a lot bigger than what he thought he would be." But just fun
100%.
fact.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, man. Everyone, I'm sure I'll be tweeting at you. We'll be going with who we're going with. I think we're going with Usman there. It's gonna be a good fight, man. I'm excited to watch these fights Saturday, man. There's a lot of stuff going on.
By the way, don't underestimate Amanda Nunes again, okay?
Nah, man. I think a new rule for me on the show is let's not say that Juliana got lucky, because I think in MMA sometimes it's the other person's night. Man, I was a believer. I love the odds. I fall in love with some odds on there. Amanda pieced her up. I think you can make a bet on mentality. I wasn't sure what Amanda we were going to get, but Amanda's the GOAT. I humbly apologize to her, and I'll send her a fruit basket or something. Congrats to her wife.
Yeah.